would find cringy. The histrionics over calls and the disrespect towards refs, the indignation over reasonable questions about health of a player who missed most of last season with a series of injuries.
Body language does not lie. And what we just heard is the sound of the legacy sports media establishment officially turning on the biggest star their league has ever seen. The narrative has completely shifted from celebrating transcendent talent to actively tearing down a rookie for showing the exact same competitive fire we praise in veterans. So what triggered this sudden coordinated attack?
There's at least one instance every game that Clark acts as if she's been shot after pushing off someone else, or she drops to the court without ever being touched. Oh my God. There's at least one instance every game of Clark berating a referee.
Now watch carefully how the goalposts are moving. During the Indiana Fever's critical matchups in early July 2024, writers like Nancy Armour began publishing these highly critical columns. They frame standard physical basketball reactions as pure petulance. Yet they conveniently ignore that the officiating this season has reached a statistically verifiable low point, with missed transition take fouls and uncalled flagrants happening on a nightly basis.
If you want to teach a kid how to menace opponents, have them watch a highlight reel of Clark's passes. This also isn't a criticism of Clark's trash talking or pearl clutching, because women's athletes dare to have the same competitive fire as athletes. Player beefs like Clark's with Tiffany Hayes of the Valkyries are part of what makes sports so entertaining.
That contrast is exactly what makes this media pivot so jarring. When veterans get physical or engage in psychological warfare, like the intense back and forth we saw with Tiffany Hayes, it is celebrated as the gritty, traditional culture of the WNBA. But when the 22-year-old point guard out of Iowa matches that exact same energy on the court, suddenly the national columns label her an entitled brat.
Dog cuss umpires for years, for crying out loud. Fans can be fickle with stars. Clark is hardly the first superstar to see her shine wear off. The more fans get to know her. James is known at nickname La Flop, and there's been a whole file of memes devoted to the times he's hunted fouls. There's a growing...
This kind of intense scrutiny is hardly unprecedented in professional basketball. But the context here is entirely unique. When you look at the men's game, superstars manipulate the whistle constantly. They exaggerate contact to secure free throws. And while fans might make jokes about it, it is universally accepted as a high IQ strategy to maximize scoring efficiency. Yet, when a female rookie attempts to navigate the exact same physical challenges against veterans who are actively trying to intimidate her, the legacy press frames it as a moral failing rather than a tactical adjustment.
Most of those folks are probably old guard fans. And Angel Reese fans, Asia Wilson fans. Now those fans, a lot of them cross-pollinate with the old guard. South Carolina fans. I mean, Stephanie White got them, infiltrating like a Trojan horse at this point.
Here is what makes this structural divide so incredibly significant for the long-term survival of the league. The current media landscape surrounding women's basketball is experiencing growing pains that rival the NBA's transition during the late 1980s. We are watching a fundamental clash between the loyalists who kept the lights on for 25 years and a massive influx of casual fans who only tune in for one specific player. This friction is not just about basketball anymore. It is about control of the narrative. When writers criticize a player for questioning a severe ankle sprain or an uncalled foul, they are signaling to their core audience that they will protect the established hierarchy. The veteran players and their dedicated reporters have built an insular culture that demands rookies pay their dues quietly, regardless of how much revenue those rookies are independently generating for the massive television contracts. But that traditional model of rookie hazing completely breaks down when the rookie is the primary economic engine. Look at the merchandise numbers, the away game attendance figures, and the sheer volume of social media engagement. We are talking about a player who single-handedly forced teams to move their scheduled games to larger NHL-sized arenas just to accommodate the unprecedented ticket demand. Think about the impossible position this puts the rookie in on a nightly basis. If she plays quietly and takes the physical punishment without complaining, She risks serious long-term injuries that could derail a generational career. But the moment she advocates for herself, waves her arms at a referee, or stares down an opponent who just threw an elbow, the established media immediately drafts hit pieces labeling her as toxic for the game. When you analyze the early games of the season, specifically that brutal stretch in late May and early June, the physical toll was undeniable. We watched players intentionally shoulder-check rookies during dead ball situations, and instead of objective reporting on player safety protocols, the coverage immediately pivoted to defending the aggressors. This is not journalism. It is active participation in a culture war. And this dynamic highlights a glaring hypocrisy in how we consume modern sports. We constantly beg athletes to show genuine emotion. We want the rivalry. We want the intensity. We want the classic Magic Johnson versus Larry Bird dynamic that saved the NBA. Yet when we actually get that raw, unfiltered emotion in the WNBA, the immediate reaction from the legacy press is to pearl clutch and demand better sportsmanship. Watch how different the coverage is for established stars. When Aja Wilson passionately demands better treatment, chartered flights, or fair MVP voting, she is rightfully lauded as a powerful voice for player empowerment. When Angel Reese talks trash and embraces the villain role, she is celebrated for her authentic confidence. The standard is completely fluid, depending on who the media decides is the designated hero and who is the designated disruptor. This hypocritical framing reveals something deeply uncomfortable about the current state of sports journalism. Many of these beat reporters and national columnists are not actually covering the games objectively. They are running public relations defense for the specific players and the specific style of basketball they prefer. They view the new wave of fans not as a financial blessing that will finally secure the league's future, but as an invading force that needs to be educated and disciplined. Furthermore, this entire controversy is unfolding against the backdrop of the upcoming collective bargaining agreement negotiations. The players' union is desperate to secure higher revenue-sharing percentages and better baseline salaries. They absolutely need the massive influx of corporate sponsorships and television money that this new generation of viewership brings. Yet, bafflingly, the legacy media continues to foster an environment that actively antagonizes the very fans who are driving those profit margins upward. The problem is that you cannot discipline millions of new consumers who hold the financial leverage. The television networks paying for these broadcast rights do not care about the unwritten rules of WNBA veteran culture. They care about the fact that a random Tuesday night game in Indiana is averaging over 1.3 million viewers, vastly outdrawing traditional Sunday programming. They care about the advertising revenue attached to those logo three-pointers and high-paced transition plays. The media professionals trying to gatekeep the sport are ultimately fighting a losing battle against pure economics. You cannot demand that a player stop acting like a superstar when the entire financial structure of the league is suddenly resting on her shoulders. Every single time she steps onto the court, she carries the burden of proving that women's sports can be a profitable mainstream entertainment product, rather than a subsidized niche offering. This hostility from the press will inevitably force teams to completely rethink their media access strategies. Why would any franchise allow their cornerstone to sit for exclusive interviews with reporters who are actively looking for angles to tear her down? We are likely going to see a massive shift toward highly controlled, team-produced content, bypassing the traditional journalism outlets entirely to protect their investment. The old guard media might win the current news cycle with these targeted columns, but they are alienating the exact audience that guarantees their own job security. You cannot continuously insult the fan base that is inflating your readership numbers and expect them to stick around out of loyalty to the brand. The fans follow the player, not the publication. So the ultimate question becomes this: are these journalists willing to sacrifice the unprecedented growth of the league just to maintain their cultural authority over how the game should be played? Mark my words, this relationship is fractured beyond repair, and it is going to completely change how superstar athletes handle media obligations moving forward. Which side of history do you think the league will ultimately choose to protect? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that subscribe button, and let me know exactly where you stand on this massive shift in sports media.